shirt, that means we can start. All right.
Is that
Yes.
Is that Helene?
Okay.
So I would like to honor you, Ann, and celebrate you. We would like to celebrate you on your birthday by telling some stories and prayers. So Ann, I would like to ask you if you would be willing to sit and listen to us for the evening, or as long as it takes. Probably.
I don't think I can get out.
No,
She's fine.
And I asked Terry if you would say a prayer for our family.
Before I pray, I'd just like to make a statement that other than Ann, I believe I'm the senior of this group. I look at all of you and I remember some of the oldest of your nieces and kids and so forth. I remember them as very little. And I remember, and I've seen, all of you grow up. And I can remember initially when I met Ann over 37 years ago, is that right, Kay? I remember when they came up to our wedding many years ago with Zippy Grandma. I remember all of you as a very blessed time of my life. I enjoyed this family very much. We represent a diversity of ideas and ideologies and all types of philosophies. I believe the most common boundary we have is our God. And I thank the Lord that this is our hope for eternity. I think of a verse of Scripture that says concerning Abraham, which is the father of the Christian faith, and he said, God chose him because he knew that he would command his children and his children's children, as many as he would have, as far off. And so I appreciate this heritage, and I appreciate Ann, and I appreciate each one of you here today. It's a great blessing for me just to be here today and look at y'all. I enjoy. I have to say that you're all characters, but other than that, I really do, and I enjoy those characters. But it's been a great privilege, and I appreciate one thing particularly. Because of the love element, which I believe Ann has exemplified and shared, there's a tolerance in this family that I think is very, very important. And the Bible speaks about that his love knows no limits. This agape love of God is one that goes beyond differences and sees the positives, and particularly tries to impart hope and peace and love to each other. So I hope that this family, and I pray that this family continue to grow, and I believe Ann has again shared that and lived that type of philosophy. So let's pray and ask God to bless Ann. She has whatever the days of her life before that God has ordained, which we all have. The blessed part of it is to be filled with hope, and we're all getting closer to our destination, which is to be eternally with our Lord. So we all pray together. Maybe you just hold hands with somebody next to you. Well, it's kind of a uniting time, and ask the Spirit of God just to really fall afresh on all of us. Heavenly Father, we thank you today for the privilege, the glorious privilege of gathering together as your children to recognize the heritage of the Lord makes us blessed. We thank you, Lord Jesus, for coming and imparting life to all of us. And we thank you today especially for Ann. We thank you for all those that are here, all the families and all the loved ones. And most of all, we thank you for giving us this tremendous heritage, that we might love one another, that we might experience your love, and that we might truly walk in the fellowship of the Holy Spirit. We ask you to bless Ann especially today, and as we reflect upon the past, and even as we consider the future, that there would be a great sense of anticipation and glory as we trust you and look to you as the author and finisher of our faith. We invite your Holy Spirit just to direct our thoughts, and again we recognize the effects we have on one another. You've called us to be living ambassadors as we are known and read of all men. May we reflect the glory of our God. May we enjoy it, and may we share it with those around us. And may you be glorified through our lives. And again, we thank you for Ann, and we ask you to bless them in a special way today. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So when Cindy asked me if I would lead this, I felt pretty honored because I feel like I'm pretty new to this family, but I'm very grateful to be part of this family. And I thought about what I wanted to say and how I could lead this. I've led other groups, but not this big, so bear with me. And I thought about the word belonging, because that's what it felt like when she asked me if I would do this. I felt a sense of belonging. And that reminded me of having worked in Ann Arbor this year with kids at risk, and kids that have joined gangs, and kids that have been dealing with violence in their life. And I had the opportunity to talk to some of those kids, and they've been teachers to me. And what I heard them say is that they really wanted to belong to a family, and they apparently weren't getting it in the families at home. And they were willing to die and kill and be killed to be in a family, to belong. And that's a pretty intense need. So I was thinking about this family, and even though everybody's far apart at times, there is a sense of belonging here. And it's important to have that sense in this family, to keep, especially for our kids as we pass that down. One way that we can help ourselves and our kids to feel like they belong is to tell stories. And, you know, nowadays we don't have elders to tell stories much anymore because everybody's split across the country. But I was thinking about Ann and how she continues to keep that commitment to telling the stories. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank you, Ann, for taking it upon yourself to continue to tell these stories. I'd like to acknowledge your commitment to keeping your family together. And I know it's not always easy. And for helping your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to know who they are and where they come from, and that they do have a place to come home to, a family they know that they belong to. So thanks for telling the stories and keep telling them. And tonight we get to tell our stories to you and you get to listen. So. Helene is going to talk a little bit about some of Ann's history.
I started out with our mom, aunt, grandmother, great aunt, and great grandmother, the mover and shaker. First, she was moving and shaking in Mississippi, where she was active in Founder Presbyterian Church, Head Start, and Women in Mississippi. To say nothing of all the things that she did with our Zippy grandmother when I was too young to remember them. Then she moved to New York in 1964 and began moving and shaking there. When we celebrated her winding down of her life in New York, it was amazing the things that she had done and the people that she had touched. She had been involved again with her church, First Presbyterian Church of New York, and they in turn got her involved with the village nursing home and the caring community. She served many a holiday meal with these friends. She was active in Must, and she volunteered for the Albanese dancers. She also continued her friendship with the women from the Women in Mississippi movement. And throughout all those years, she was active in Church Women United. And believe it or not, she still had a lot of time for her New York grandsons, Lincoln and Anson. Then, this time last year, she moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where she started moving and shaking all over again. She immediately joined First Presbyterian Church of Ann Arbor, and they immediately got her involved and acting in interracial activities and meals for the homeless. Last January, only 6 months after she'd been in Ann Arbor, she managed to make the front page of the paper in the Martin Luther King Peace March with her purse slung over her shoulder, trooping right along. And now and then she can also be seen attending some activity to promote the involvement in with senior citizens of our community. She's paving the way for the rest of us. And last but not least, on her way to moving and shaking, she can be seen still grandmothering and great-grandmothering the Mayleben clan, as well as an occasional McNulty and Saunders thrown in there. And I feel I can safely say that the world will never be the same due to the moving and shaking of the one and only Ann Hewitt, and that we all love her for it.
Here, here.
Cindy is going to talk about Zippy Grandma.
I usually speak off the cuff, but Zippy Grandma, or Helene Lynn Alford, was such a special person that I made a few little notes, and I'm going to refer to them because I didn't want to forget one precious thing. And a lot of you younger children here don't know this lady we're talking about. She was this lady's mother. So she was my grandmother, and she was real special. And there's something in families called lineages. And so you may not have known this older lady, but I knew her, and I'm going to tell her story so you can remember. And maybe someday you'll tell your children about this gathering and this lady. And that's the way families stay together, through all these stories. So my grandmother was named Helene, and they called her Zippy because she lived in Mississippi. And when Vicki would come down and visit us, I think it started, she would always call her, she was visiting in Mississippi, so she would call her Zippy Grandma.
It had a lot to do with her energy, too.
That's right. I wrote here that my grandmother was able to share with everyone who came into her life a childlike appreciation for the joy of life. For her, the daily round of household tasks held meaning. Meanings like comfort, beauty, mindfulness, and caring. She was in her middle ages when I was lived with her. I lived in her house, and she was a fleshy, robust woman. I was small, and she seemed a vast, safe world of smelling good hugs and soft, warm textures. I'd go in her closet. She would let me go in her closet, and I would touch. She had a lot of soft jewelry boxes made out of silk, and I loved to go in and touch them. And I would go in the kitchen, and I would make flour biscuits with her. And we would clap our hands together like this, and little puffs of flour would go up like smoke signals. And she also made Christmas candy. And so at Christmas time, we'd have these big rolls of candy, peppermint candy, and we would cut them up and dip them in chocolate, and then put them up in the attic where it was cold enough for the chocolate to get hard. At church, I went to church with her a lot, and she played the piano, and she played it like she loved it. And everyone was filled with rapture when she would play, just because there was so much love and music coming out of her. And that was my favorite part. And then during the sermon, which I found hard to sit through usually, she would sit next to me and she would tickle my arm. And I remember her sitting there tickling my arm. At home, she taught me how to set a table, and she taught me that home and hospitality go together. And she loved having guests, and she loved making things beautiful. I'd go in the garden with her, and we had wisteria, and wisteria is blue and purple, and it would grow all around my swing set, and she grew roses. And the sunshine would flow down, and the rose smell would come up, and it was just a perfect magic moment. She was that kind of a lady. But I wanted to say, she used to wear these one-piece cotton short outfits, and they had little button tops and then little flared shorts. And in those days, grown-up ladies didn't wear shorts. So whenever the doorbell would ring, she would button on this skirt that went around the shorts. And I just remember her always like buttoning and unbuttoning this skirt. And she also wore tiny, small aprons that were kind of plain in the middle, and then they had ruffle around it. So she always like had this checkered, ruffled apron on, which I remember too. She was really beautiful. And she wasn't beautiful just from her skin and her face and her hair. She was beautiful from her spirit. In her presence, everyone experienced a spiritual welcome. She offered them joy. As a small child, I once by accident broke her radio because I get confused about the right and the left, and she had told me to turn it to the right, and I turned it really hard to the left, and it broke. And in those days, radios were pretty important. And I was terrified, and I started crying, and I was in her room by myself when I broke it, and I was scared for her to come in because I knew, I had done something really bad by accident, but I'd done it. And I was really crying hard, and she came in, and I remember she put her arms around me, and she pulled me to her bosom, and she was very big-chested, so it's like, you kind of like, and she said, there, little one, everything's going to be all right. And I really felt forgiveness from her and love. So I think that forgiveness, understanding, comfort, music, beauty, and joy, and her own loving flesh These were the gifts to our lives from the generation before. And may we pass them on to our children and to our grandchildren. I'm very happy to be part of this family.
That was Jarvis Lavender. Toilet water and scent on her handkerchiefs and things like that. And she was a beautiful lady. And before you leave, you can go in and look at Vicki's wall of pictures, and the baby up on the right-hand corner was her. And she was the first Gerber baby. At that time, it was lactated baby food, but she was wasting away to nothing. And they put her on that food, and this was the testimonial picture. What? Stung?
Yeah, there's a wasp.
Wasp. It's something to be a wasp. It in the corner of the wood.
There he is, right around the fan. Here, look out, he's coming out. There we go.
It's right there, on top of the windowsill.
Okay, look out.
Yvonne, if you give them a minute, they can jump up there. There we go.
Get a picture.
In the beginning, just let me measure.
Oh, yeah.
Eat it. Okay.
All is well.
Pete, I'm sure your homeowner's insurance is paid up.
Okay, so next we have Kay talk about Ruth.
Okay, I would like to just add a couple of things about civic service, since I was the oldest grandchild. And I will never forget, and I have shared this story several times, but some of the younger ones had never heard it. I was kind of amused at you saying that she was a large, fleshy woman, because I didn't think of her as being that, but you were much smaller than I was, you know. But I can remember she had a very deep bathtub and a very large bathroom. And I can remember one time she had taken a bath, and then she told me to get in the bath water. And so she was not dressed, which was really, shocking to me, and because we didn't really do that around our house. We didn't see each other that much. And so she was getting dressed, but she had a rolling pin in her bathroom. And here she was, rolling herself while I was in the bathroom. It's left a very strong mental picture in my mind. But I also had to think about Zippy Grandma as, like I told Terry, I said, this is very crude, but I said, it is amazing that she didn't get barbecued on her front yard and a burning cross, because she was so interested in civil rights before civil rights was the popular thing, to do, and she just was always reaching out to the blacks. There were always blacks in the home that were like family. And she cared for them. I can remember Lena Bell was always getting thrown in jail on Saturday night for getting drunk, and Grandma would go down and get her out, and then there was always Henry, and there was Madeline, and they were very dear people to us, and she made that dear. And I had to think also about her can that she always put the old biscuits in, and then every morning we would go and we'd take those biscuits and scatter them all out in the yard for the birds to come and eat them. And so those were really precious memories to me. And every Sunday, now I don't know how she did this. I was trying to think, because now I have the red dishes, but Grandma always set a beautiful table with all of these red dishes and glasses. And on Sunday we always had fried chicken, we had rice and gravy, we had stewed squash, and we always went to church. So I don't know when she did
No,
this.
we had roasted beef on Sunday, fried chicken was on Saturday.
I thought it was on Sunday. Sorry.
We always had roast. We put it in when we went to Sunday school, and when we came home it was done.
Okay.
And then it was
I wondered how she fried that chicken.
made in the beef pie for Henry on Monday, and then they kept the beef suet, and that's what they fried the chicken in. It's a wonder we aren't all dead.
that stuff's not gonna get you, we're all here. Exactly.
And before I go on into mother, since that was my assigned duty, I would like to share just a couple little things about Ann that I don't know whether the others probably won't share them, but she came to visit us a number of years ago when we lived in Mississippi, and all she wanted to eat was figs. And I had a girl down the road that had a fig bush, and I went down and I picked this great big box of figs, and she literally came in the house. She did not hardly even say hello to us. She went over to the sink, and I told her, I said, I didn't know what I was supposed to do with these, so I didn't wash them or anything. She said, oh, I'm so glad you didn't. And so she stood at the counter and just ate these figs and ate these figs and ate these figs, and she was in the bathroom quite a bit. And then, of course, the one thing that I remember about Ann is that she always drank this real strong iced tea. And I used to tell her I just wanted to, see her autopsy when she was dead, because I was sure she'd just be charcoal black inside or brown, dark brown. But anyway, one time she decided that she needed to kick that habit. And when she came to visit us, she just laid on the couch. And I thought she was dying, because this was not my Aunt Ann. Usually she's just all over. And so I called Vicki, I think, and said, there's something wrong with Aunt Ann. She just doesn't look good. And so then that kind of shook her up, that I would think that. So ever since she's made a point that she wears real bright clothes when she's around me, so I'll know she's still cold. So those were special things.
She wears bright clothes all the time.
I know, yes, and of course her famous sweaters and little dresses for our girls we will never forget, and I never forget the first time she made this beautiful, it was the prettiest blue. It was a light baby blue, and it had more life to it, and she made this one with it had elephants on it, and so the first thing that Kim did, she was toddling, and I had her in this little sweater, and she had new shoes on and everything, and she went out, and we were on the farm, and Terry had drained all the oil out of his tractor and put it in the sink, and she's over there going like this with her brand new sweater. I was so sick, and I called her and told her, I said, oh, and so she quickly made another sweater for her, and it was just such a blessing, and so she's always been a blessing. But I got to get to my topic. My topic is my mother, and I didn't write any notes, but some things that I thought of as we were thinking about this family is we have come from such a heritage of reaching out and touching other people. And it blesses me so. I remember a statement one time, I think Vicki made it, about my mother or Ed, I can't remember which one, said to somebody, my mother is so good to dead people. And they said, what do you mean? And they said, well, whenever anybody dies, she's always the first one to be over there with food to take, to the family. And that just, it really meant a lot to me, because I think of my mom as she was on her deathbed. She was still typing for the blind. And she just was always reaching out, and that was, and she implanted that so that it's just a natural thing for us as a family to just see those needs that are out there and to do them. And it's blessing me, because now I'm seeing my girls take up the torch, and it would, it is just a blessing to see that we're a family that reaches out. And I have this dear friend that I just absolutely love in Mississippi, and she tells me all the time she's so bored that she has nothing to do. And I talked to her this morning, and I said, oh, Shirley, I wish you were here, because this week I wish I was clones, because there was so much to do, but some people can just sit there and they don't even see the needs around. They just don't have eyes to see. But we have been raised in such a wonderful family that we always looked around and saw people that had needs, and we were able to meet those needs. And I thank the Lord for that heritage. And that was passed down from Zippy down, and it's been with Ann. I know many years she has spent trying to help colored women upgrade themselves and their skills so that they could better themselves. And it's just been a real strong thread through our whole family, and I thank the Lord for that.
Thank you. Okay, I do know you all apart. Vicki, have you got the Lotus bracelet?
Yes. We're going to have Heather and Katie give Ann something special.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is your just.
Now we should presenting the paper brand
Thank you, Molly,
for all the little
great-grandchildren.
All the little ones. Well, then I can take that home with me. Well, the big ones too, and Jonathan put his footprint on them. And I think that is about just lovely. Stand it over there against the wall. And after this is all over, then I'll read it all. Thank you. Thank you.
Children have been working on that all morning.
Everybody put their name. I wondered what everybody had to go do something. Well, she'll be right back.
We're going to open this, if anybody has a story, a short story they might want to share about Ann and how maybe she's inspired them, or
I'd like to
just a
share
story.
something real quick I shared before, but I'll never forget the first time I ever traveled to Mississippi. And I think the first time Kay and I had been married for about 3 years, I believe, and we came down to visit y'all, and you had twins that day. And anyhow,
Who were those two? I was curious.
you were just barely here. But I remember she took us all over Jackson. We had a tremendous time. She was such a gracious host, and we just had a tremendous time. She really made us feel at home. We went to all types of places to eat. We saw a little bit of Jack, not much of him. But we had a great time, and I'll never forget that. It was a real special time. And I really appreciate the way they made us feel at home, all your family.
Well, and of course, I'll never forget Terry and Dave's wedding. It was 999 degrees, and we ran out of gasoline or something, and I can see myself to this day. I can remember the dress I wore. I wore dresses then, and I stood in the filling station, and absolutely, I felt like I was standing in a puddle. I was inspiring someone. The 22nd of August is that time. I can't remember my own anniversary, but I can remember that. It was hot in Council, Mississippi that day, Council, Indiana that day, I want to tell you. And since you mentioned my knitting, I think I would like to have the latest pieces modeled. Yes, please.
Stand up, girls. And they know the right side from the wrong side. I wish they would be older. Everybody would not ever put them on upside down. It hurts my feelings. That's very dear. That's the last thing I made is yours. I just finished it 2 days ago. Alyssa, I just finished it 2 days ago. I was working on it so hard. And the latest thing I'm making now, for those of you that aren't in the baby making mood, is the covers to use over the car seats in the car. Because both when it's air conditioned and when it's winter, sometimes the baby seat is in a draft. And so I'm now making little short ones, and I'm so glad that I saw Logan's carrying case, because I will pick out the blues and the yellows and the pinks to make his, and I am making one for Debbie's box that looks like firefighters.
Hey, Mom, you guys did a lot of listening there. A lot of folks got it. You gotta stop talking so other people can talk.
How can we talk about Ann without talking about her energy? And I think this is a great place as she's talking about her knitting, which has to constantly be kept busy, even over, as she says, she's slowed down over these years, but you still see those hands going just about as fast as she talks. And Ann has more energy than anyone you have ever met in your life. And she's been so inspirational to me, that energy, that she comes into a room and the energy is there. As a young child, I remember going to Mississippi, driving in the car, singing the old rugged cross, passing the time away. But there was always that energy. We would get there and we would go. All these different places to church and to the Y and all these different charitable things she had. But she always had time for us, and she always wanted us to take a nap. And so she would read to us to get us to go to sleep. And of course she read just as fast as she knitted and as fast as she talked, and she would read real fast. And pretty soon it kind of come a hum and you'd go to sleep. So it all worked wrong. But she definitely has been an inspiration to me with her involvement and her energy. I would just love to have a little bit of your energy as you through the years. So that's been my inspiration for sure.
Thanks, Vicki.
Well, as you well know, Grandma's full of energy, as Vicki just said. And for at least 14, maybe even 15 years, Grandma read to me non-stop. She would read until she fell asleep before she stopped reading.
You'll let you sleep extra while she reads.
Right.
That's why you're in the room.
On the buses and on the subways, and well, I'm dyslexic and I have trouble reading, and well, she inspired me to continue trying and learning to read, and she's one of my inspirations to go back to school and continue to learn, because she's inspired me with all the knowledge she's imparted on me through the books she's read to me, and throughout the years there have probably been at least 1,000.
I don't play games very well. I read much better.
Anybody else have a story? I do.
As we say, as many times as Grandma and I disagreed on a lot of different issues, all of this being one. But I have to say that I was recently recognized for my ability to recognize diversity and to create a team of people, and though not everybody fits into the same cookie cutter pattern, to maximize the potential, the sum of all is more than just the individual components. And that was definitely brought on by Grandma.
That's a good place where I was going to touch. One thing I wanted to bring up is, I think, and Terry, you touched on it also, the diversity in our family. We are very diverse. We're diverse in personality. We're certainly diverse in politics. We go from one extreme to the other. And yet, I think in everyone here, there's an acceptance and a love for what that person is. And I don't think nobody tries to change them, or nobody tries to make them be what you want. And I think a lot of that comes from you, Ann and Mother and Zippy Grandma, and accepting us all for what we are. And I love the things about people that are so much better than I, that do things better than I, that I don't do. And just putting this together, you know, I'm pretty good at getting the food organized and all this organized, but I'm not very good at putting something like this together. But Yvonne and Cindy and a lot of people work together to put something like this on. We kind of take advantage of each other's strengths, and I think that's a real strength for our family.
I have something to say. Actually, there's something about my grandma's short and sweet, but I think whether we like to hear it or not, maybe something to talk about. But if I was to ever ask her if something looked okay, or if this was alright, or you know, this, that, or the other thing, she would tell you no matter what she thought you wanted to hear. Oh, that's ugly. That makes you look fat. Or that, that just doesn't, that's ugly. Or, you know, whatever. Or maybe it wasn't a, you know, negative thing, but you'd always know the truth. And I guess I'm a lot like that. You know, fine. I got that from her. Because my mom was pretty diplomatic. It had to come from her. That's too nice, and my mom's too pushy. So, I guess I don't think you ever needed to try to make people like you. I think people either like you, they hate you, and who cares if they don't like you. And that's kind of how I am. You know, you have enough friends outside of that, and it doesn't matter. So the honesty, the straightforwardness, and got that from her. And I also got, when I went to stay with her in New York, I got a lot of independence. which was really cool. I learned to take the bus. She showed me, and then she said, okay, now go do it.
Yeah.
And I did.
Well,
and I didn't die.
Well and a half.
You know, I learned the beginning of my street smarts from her. You know, got up. I fell asleep one day on the bus, and I didn't quite know what to do. Never been in a situation like that. And I ended up getting off the bus just from listening to things that she would say. You know, these people, you know, they're not going to hurt you. You know, street people aren't going to hurt you. Most likely, they're just there. They don't have any place to live. You know, don't bug them. Don't, you know. So I got off the bus and I ran into this chicken place because it was the worst place. Like it was, I think it was between Broadway and 9th or something like that on 42nd Street, which was like really crappy, like that block. And I'd never walked that block by myself, and I needed to get back up to Broadway to go to dance class. And I thought, what do I do? What do I do? And I just thought about like things that Grandma said. Well, I ended up going into the doorway of this chicken place and waited for a cop to come. And I jumped right in front of him and I walked that block back. And I would not have known at 12 years old to be like that without having listened to her or watched her do the things that she did. So,
Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to say a couple of real key times in my life that I really missed having my Nana, and that Grandma was there. Well, I think of her as a grandma, my Ann Ann. Both when I graduated from college and when I got married. And there were two places where she meant a lot to me. And I appreciate that.
I think that's a key point is that she stepped right in and filled what shoes she could throughout Sunday. I'd like to thank her also because when Mom was dying, we had been up there that summer and, you know, she was still doing okay. And then we were harvesting and we were so busy. And Ann called me and she said, hey, I'm going to send you money to go up and see your mom. And I said, oh, Ann, I said, we're just so busy and Terry really needs me. And she said, I said, I really was thinking that we'd go at Christmas and then I'd go back after Christmas and spend some time. She said, no, I think you should go now. And so she sent me the money and I went up and that was the last part of October and I got to spend a week with Mom and then we got to go back at Christmas and she was gone 2 days later and I wouldn't have gotten that time. So I thank you, Ann, for prodding me to do
And
that.
I want to thank her too because she stayed after that for 2.5 weeks, Mark, when you finally came. We never thought you were coming 17 days late, but you stayed until Mark was born so that you would be there when I needed you, and I needed you then.
And I'd like to add that I'm so happy that Kay and Vicki are talking about Ruth because Mom talks to me about Ruth a lot. And Ruth was Mom's sister. And one of the things that she says is, oh, I'm the oldest person in the family. It's really hard. I don't have anybody to share the memories with. And part of the reason for today was to tell her thank you for holding those memories for us. She's really the memory holder. And it is a hard position. But it's a position that we appreciate. And, you know, and she sometimes says, oh, if it weren't for me, nobody would get together, and it's awesome. And she's probably right. You know, you don't step, I'm sure one of us will step forward when there's a need, but, you know, what we just wanted to say, and when Yvonne and I were talking about, well, what really is the heart? And the heart is a kind of thank you for this holding together through the memory of your sister, through the love of your sister that's so strong, and you always talk about her, and all of her children and grandchildren are here today, and it means a lot to all of us. So this is a family thank you.
Sometimes I'm speechless.
Oh, wait, get that
I have it on tape.
Does anybody else have anything to share? Oh, Anson.
I have a story. One time when I was 7 years old, Grandma took me to Mayleben when I did never the most patient child, so on the way back home, we were halfway across the street, and I was like, well, we need to be on the other side of the street, so I decided to cross the street, in the middle of the street, and there were no places to get through the cars, because they were like bumper to bumper. So I got up on these bumpers, and I started to walk across, and I slipped. And one of the cars happened to be a really old car with a jagged, like all metal bumper, and it had gotten into an accident, so it had a cut up bumper. And I slipped and I fell and I caught my knee on that bumper, and so I was laying on the ground crying, and my leg wasn't bleeding that bad right in the beginning because it was just, and so my grandma walks across the street, and she's like, okay, Anson, you gotta get up and walk home. She's like, it's not gonna help to cry, and then I was like, yes it will. And I was like, well, and then she was like, all right, then cry. So I cried. I walked home 3 blocks to get to my dad's, and it happened to be a little more than a scratch. I had cut my kneecap in half, so I had to call the ambulance, but I think one of the things that Grandma inspired me to forgive.
We've all been in that boat.
It'll show you the scar. Absolutely, it's like this. It went all the way to the bone. Through the bone. I'll never forget that I said, well, all right, if it'll help you to cry, then cry. We gotta get home.
It does show that it's genetic, Anson, because when I tore my knee up, my mother said, it's nothing, get up and walk. I proceeded to stand up, and one piece of my leg went one way and the other piece of my leg went the other way, and it was a little bit more of something. I'm still paying for it. She is. I'm still inspired by
I'm going to share a quick story. Now, this isn't family-wise, but a lot of you know about the riot that happened in Ann Arbor with the KKK recently. And so some of the community of Ann Arbor got together and at City Hall, and they had a peace rally to kind of get rid of the energies that were up there. And we did prayers and a ceremony and stuff, and I looked across, and I went, and I looked across, and there was Ann. I couldn't believe it. Like, what's she doing here? And of course, she's been following Senator Alma Wheeler-Smith around every Monday for coffee clutches and stuff. But anyway, she's been an inspiration for me for the work that I do in the community. And I just want to say that she got up and spoke at this peace rally, and she had almost everybody in that circle crying, and there were a lot of people. And so she inspires a lot of people on a lot of different levels, and I was there to see that.
I like to,
Is there, oh.
I was just say, I like to think that my independence comes from grandma. I remember growing up and going to visit grandma in New York City and doing things that, as a parent, I am not ever going to let riding the subways and going to the theater, and and grandma would say, yeah, just go 3 blocks down, go into Grand Central Station, put your token in there, take the whatever train to the south, get off of Bleecker Street, go 6 blocks, turn right 3 blocks, and Cindy's house is the last door on the left-hand side. And I'm thinking, and then she pushes out the door and she's like, off we go at 12 or something like that. And thankfully there were 2 of us, but we weren't much match for a mugger if that were predestined to happen. I like to think back, and that definitely has given me some independence. And I also, grandmother's building is talking the difference between the number 9 and the number 10. When I was 5, that's right. When I was 5, Nan put me on the elevator, hit the 10th floor, and said, "Get off when the door's open." Somebody got on at the 9th floor to go to the 11th floor, and I got off.
inspired to forgive.
That's right. Forgive.
I think.
Well, I can count to 11 now.
I think something every man in this audience will attest to is that we are very strong women.
Amen. Amen.
But I also have to, this goes along with something I wanted to say about my mother, but I think it goes along with all of us, hopefully all of us women, even though we're strong, we're willing to learn and change. And I remember Mom was so strong. When I was growing up, I mean, black was black and white was white, and never the twain should be confused, you know. And so I think it was pretty much that way when Vic was growing up. But then we get bad. and I'll never forget my mom. We went there every Friday night for supper. And we would be sitting there, and she would start in on some topic, and I thought, boy, she was just right on everything I was thinking. And all of a sudden, it was just like she turned around, jumped over the fence, and then she went back the other way on this, and I thought, where is that coming from? And so it was coming from Ed. And I'll never forget one day that he brought a note home from school, and my mom and dad had to go to school and sign a paper saying that he could wear what he wanted and could wear his hair like he wanted. And I mean, we would never have even considered that, you know, and Mom and Dad went, and I thought, what? This can't be my mom and dad. I just can't believe this is happening. But I saw much more, you know, graciousness and willing to see another side in her, and I feel that, you know, even though, you know, we come from a very strong lineage, especially of the women, I do feel like that through time God was able to work in our hearts and all to be able to see some other sides too, and I appreciated that, and I've seen it in my mother.
Ann,
I'd like to
I
talk.
wanted to thank you because
Carrie.
without you, I don't think I would have had a prayer as far as my crafts and my handwork. We skipped a generation, I think. My mother is not at all interested in that, and I thank you for that. It's something I enjoy very, very much, and I can remember you sitting down with me a long time ago with knitting needles and saying, Pearl one, bit one, pearl. You remember that girl? She always was trying to get us involved. And well, that was easier because you had to face her if you were left-handed. Otherwise, she sat beside you. And so, you know, I never thought I would ever enjoy it later on in life, but I do, and I thank you for that.
And y'all all did learn to knit, so I never did as many Afghans and things for y'all, because y'all did learn to knit.
Yeah,
but and then I guess you quit, and of course Ruth taught me to knit, and then she never knit again. And the first thing I knit was a sack and booties and bonnet for Kate. Karen Ann. So that is how long I have been knitting. And when all of that how long I have been knitting.
Oh, yes. My mother made me. And the first thing I ever knitted was for Susie. I told Aunt Vic, I'm going to make you an Afghan, and I started it, and I hated doing it. I hated it. So I thought, I'm not going to do it. I put it away, and my mother made me finish. And every night she would make me do so many squares so I could finish it. When I mailed it off to her, it was the biggest relief of my entire life to have that done. That was my first thing. So
okay, Nan, what are your memories of knitting?
I have one and only. I wanted to make an Afghan for my boyfriend in high school. Ann was with us for what, a month? She was here for about a month, and I thought, I can't do this. Oh, yeah, I've got a month here, we'll sit down and we'll do it. And we spent so much time together. It's the boy and I that we had hardly any time to work on it, but every night and every weekend, we sat there and somehow between the two of us, we got it done.
So how does Dave like his Afghan?
But then Nan was making another Afghan before we died, and I knew that, you know, she was knitting when she was there talking to her and all, and then, but after Ruth died, I knew Nan would never touch that Afghan again. So that's green and gold, and it's on the Mayleben floor all the time. I finished. But Lan started it, and she had picked out the pattern. It's one with a leaf up the middle. And then I made it bigger because the Mayleben always wanted to be normal, and I added to the sides, because I'm not original in anything in the world except my knitting. But my knitting is original. I can take scraps of yarn and make things, or everybody's had the little sweaters with the pictures on them. Or I think the still an afghan on Mark's bed with ships on it, I believe. And I've got Anson's myself that's got 2 ships on it that is on my bed, and to say nothing of the beautiful one I made for Lincoln. He picked it out of the book. It was the gorgeous one, but then he wanted squirrels on it. So it's 5 shades of blue, and I took another pattern and I put a squirrel here, a squirrel here, and a squirrel there. And I'm sleeping under that one in the wintertime. And I put the squirrels on there, but that's what he wanted. I guess maybe he was 9.
Well, you know, when we're talking about helping people, one of the mottos that Grandma always says is, well, you help people how you can when you can, and then they don't necessarily help you back, they help somebody else, and that's how the circle goes around. And I was thinking when Mom had her heart attack, how many years?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. It was pretty scary, although she had open heart surgery, and I was at one point I was feeling really like overwhelmed. She had just come home from the hospital, and you know, one day she was all hooked up to these machines, and the next day says, okay, you can go home. And it's like, and I called Vicki, and Vicki said, you want me to come? I said, yes, I want you to come. And so Vicki came, and Vicki and I managed that next week, Mother's first week out of the hospital, and it wasn't easy. And I was thinking about that, you know, it's not an Afghan, a knitted Afghan, but it's an Afghan of love. And it means so much to me, you know, and that's how we all hold together, you know, we do different things.
And of course, Helene had already come once, and then she was taking her boards. In fact, before I would be operated on, I said, I can't be operated on now. My daughter is taking her nursing diploma boards, and she has got to take them. And they said, well, she'd rather have you alive. Yeah. So I guess she did. So of course she ended up in North Carolina. She was 12 hours late getting to
Master of Ceremonies is calling.
You've covered so many topics. I'm so grateful for everyone who's remembered those. There's one that I think stands out really strongly for me and hasn't been covered, and it's your generosity. And your relationship to money. One of my strong memories in growing up was at Christmas when my mother said, well, you didn't look at those cards that are stuffed into the trees, and went and picked out these cards, and they were checks, and I looked at it and said, oh, it's from Ann. It was great, and my mother said, did you look at the amount? And I did, and it was a large sum. It allowed me to buy a car a few years later, and it struck me that you had decided, although you could have used that for a lot of things, that it was important to share that particular sum among us. And so often since then, I paid attention to the way in which you just let money flow. You've said many times you can't take it with you, and that you're going to spend it on the things that are important to you at the time that they're important, rather than hoarding it away, and that the Lord will provide beyond that. And that's just been a really strong message to me that has kind of permeated a lot of the way that I try to think about money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, one thing for me, Ann, is when you're saying that you're only original in one thing, making quilts, I found something else you're pretty original at. I thought that was the way you make milkshakes, personally. I First person I ever know that put eggs in a milkshake. I'll tell you that it did come out pretty darn good. I asked her to make me one last night, but we went out, so I'm still waiting for my milkshake, and I think everybody else here needs one before they do.
For me, it was the picky eater. When Grandma figured out something I would like, she'd never serve it to me for breakfast. She like spaghetti, I was like, cakes. So she did it. And then when Mama made spaghetti, I did her.
What I recall stories being told, that was what my granddad said too, was that never let it be known that you liked it because you were going to get it every time.
I think Ann was a good inspiration that you can be anything that you want to be. That's right. We got started with the afghan, and I thought, no way, I can't do that, I don't know how to do that. You know, you
be my first subscription to Working Women, and, you know, really promoted the, you know, thing too, that, you know, women can be in business and do what they want, you know, just kind of stick in there. She was in accounting like I am, and it inspired me to.
I think that not only you can be anything you want to be, but you can also do, you don't have to be anything for the rest of the world things. Grandma, you know, I never realized it until I talking to other people about their grandmothers, but I think this is the only grandma I know that wears leather on a regular basis. And I remember when my wife Linda first met Grandma wanted to go shopping for some women's unmentionables that were the appropriate color to match her leather outfit, because the dye from the leather was all she wanted was, you know, red. I've had people come to the office before and say, you know, over the holidays we were watching a rerun of Phil Donahue, and there was this great older woman on it. Oh yeah, it was Grandma. Grandma's she stands out in the crowd. She's moved to Ann Arbor and taken Ann Arbor by storm, and she has, I think, made the transition admirably.
Let me add to that real quick, because it was about the diner. I was sitting on, it was on some holiday. I was downstairs in the basement all by myself, and I heard this voice, and I was like, not that voice. And I looked at a big old headshot of Grandma, and she said, my hair is I'm 7 years old, and my hair is supposed to be this color. And she was arguing with Phil Donahue. She was going out with Phil Donahue. And I just started laughing. I was ran upstairs. I was like, Grandma, what are you doing? I don't know. I must have still been in junior high, or like, I don't remember. I just remember that because I remember her. That was what she said on that was just as important in the fact that she was arguing with me. Because she was stating, I don't need to dye my hair. I don't need to have colored contacts. And that was like the whole thing, you know. Why do people, you know, wear these contacts and try to change, you know? And she just stood and said, well, I said, well, why don't you have it? And she said, I'm 7 years old. I'm supposed to. That's just like that.
I have to say that I got to hear a few stories that haven't been told today because different people were saying, well, what should I tell this story? Should I tell this story? But Anson was telling, I don't know if he's still here, but Anson was telling the story about when Grandma was in a holdup in New York. And I think they locked everybody in the basement. And these two big, husky, like maintenance men were crying. And Grandma was there just, oh, the crying's not going to help.
I just discovered Grandma Helene gets it.
I've told this story repeatedly, but when you mentioned her on her hair, I'll just never forget when she got her money from her inheritance, and she went and she got her hair done in this big old beehive, and she sat up all night because she wanted to show them at work how pretty she looked. She did not lay down. And then after that, she'd wrap her hair in toilet paper every night to go to bed.
They wrapped it in paper and put it in a box. They come through like a whirlwind. Like she said, they packed everything. Things you said you weren't even going to bring. Yeah, they packed it all.
I think a lot of people tell, at least if you're a girl, you tell the guy you're going out with, well, you gotta pass my dad's test. But the big one was always, you gotta pass the Ann test. You can pass that test, you can pass them all, because if you got them cornered in the corner, they didn't stand a chance. That was always the big test.
So, the next thing we're going to do, we've got a couple more things and then we'll, and Cindy is going to do a presentation.
Well, we've been telling stories as a way of sharing. We've talked about Afghans as a way of sharing. One of the things families do is traditionally, women cook together. Now, so Grandma will be the first, so we made, Grandma, a family recipe book. Now, hold it, I know she's about to say, well, I don't cook. Well, I have to say that she's in a decorated this book for you. And the cover says, just think, if it wasn't for you, today would be just another average, vanilla, kind of nondescript, sensible shoes, no phone, no sort of day. Because of you, it isn't. And then there's a birthday card in here for you, which everybody signed. And then there are recipes, which read something like this. This is garlic chicken from Lincoln McNulty, and you take the chicken strips and you fry them in the pan with seasoning and oregano, cayenne pepper, fresh crushed garlic, until it's brown cooked. And then he says, I made this up, and the only thing in the fridge was chicken. It's good, try it. Then there's 5-bean salad, offering from Jack Mayleben, who says, this reminds me of Ann, because we always seem to have it, but I don't think anyone but Helene and Ann eat it.
2 weeks later, I threw it out.
And P.S., you can buy it at a can. There are 2 recipes that Aunt Ruth was famous for, pecan pie and English apple pie, and there's Helene Offer's famous spiced tea, and there's overnight salad. That's a big favorite of everyone, but I think the favorite is Laurie's. This, I'd like to share this one. It's called All Night Cereal. You take one tiny little Logan, one very tired mom, one very terrific dad, and a bowl of sugar pops, and you have up all night cereal. And then you have Nan's, I like hers. Hers is taco casserole, which everybody likes, and at the end she says, this is one of the few recipes we all like. What makes it special is that you can throw it together really fast after a long day at work. And Ed and Maryann's, Ed has to be Korean. What? Yes, Ed is the best cook. Perhaps in the room. Where is Ed? There he is. Yes, he holds the family record and the cucumber salad from their garden. And Helene writes, when I think of holidays and family gatherings, I always think of overnight salad. It reminds me of my grandmother as well as my mom. It is a recipe that has been in our family for many, many years. We love overnight salad and we love family gatherings. And Yvonne shared Greek bean stew. I think Yvonne is a cook, you can tell. It's a real recipe. Mine is 2 pages long. What does that make me?
The chef. What? The chef.
I love the Nichols. Vicki Nichols writes, this is the recipe for Nichols popcorn. Remove it from the bag. Place it in the microwave. Put on the movie and enjoy your family. And then at the end, there are more. I didn't read all. The final thing in this family cookbook is the kids' favorite cereal list. Oh. And we figured out we have 22 children, and they're all represented here with their favorite cereal. So we would like to give this to you. Wait, 1 second.
1, 2, 3, 2.
Wait, no, 1.
1, 2, 3, 2.
What does Barney say?
1, 2, 3.
What?
Katie, never before my mom.
1, 2, 3.
No.
This is
All of us say together. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
and all of your family rallying around you.
It's my second favorite though. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
I've been working with Grandma now for about a year and a half on our family tree. The lineage statement was mentioned a couple of times. And just to tell you, it's a interest of mine. It started when my wife got me a computer program to kind of track down, because we have a lot of information out there. And just to kind of give people who are here, if they're interested in updating some of the things that our ancestors have done. We are a small cog in a very large wheel now. And as some of you will attest, I know that Grandma brought down a roll last time we had a floor that is now, I think it's up to 100 feet long. It's huge. But again, this wonderful line of people that go all the way back to the 1600s now. Some of our relatives died in the Revolutionary War during the fight for freedom here. A lot of our relatives died in the Civil War. So far as I can tell, all on the correct side, the north side. There were a lot of people, a lot of our family members that felt that was the cause worth fighting for. But Grandma has been a wonderful help. Some of the literature, some of the materials she has are just unbelievably timely in my collection of data. So we do go back a long way.
Thank you. Yes. For doing that.
Okay, me? You're on a sheet. Okay. All right. Now, Grandma, I can't look at you and read, so actually,
You look at her, Mom.
to you, Grandma, having lived these years, having seen what you have seen, and cried the tears of full times, we now acknowledge that you consider the letter of the other ones. May God reveal to you a sacred sensibility. We are blessed by your presence. We are grateful to know you. Dear God, we thank you for the years gone by, and we thank you for the years ahead. This woman has lived. She has seen cycles of life and death. She has rejoiced at mourning and mourned its passing. Thus she has now gained sacred knowledge, the power to heal through the depth of her compassion, the power to teach through the depth of her understanding, the power to bring forth a new and better world through the depth of her vision. May all now see in her, and may she see within herself the elder, the wise one, the one who holds the candle of illumination for all the world to see. May she be honored and revered. May her children's children see the power of the ages as it is written in her eyes. She has arrived, dear Lord. May she be blessed. She has come so far. May she now know peace. She has worked so hard. And may a cycle now begin for her, more powerful than any other, most glorious of all. Bless her always. May she shine. Amen.
Amen.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Helene. Happy birthday to you. I'd like to thank Cindy and Yvonne for pulling this all together. And now we have birthday cake and dilly bars.
Dilly bars.
And chocolate chip cookies made by the Strat girls and so we have dessert. We'll get it out.
Dilly bars, just how you sit in that chair and tell you about everybody about the dilly bars.
I know, it was a great idea though.
It came from the art fair. Oh, yeah? Well, that, you know, I did. Lovely. I've got prices.
One side, one end,
Don't fall.
I'm trying not to.
And of course, gracious sakes.
Oh, wait, I want you over here with Ed. What button do I push, Ed?
Nothing, just feel it's running.
Oh. Oh, okay. Hold it steady. All right, can I turn it sideways so it gets, no. Oh, okay, here I come, I'm coming in. Kiss each other, we love you.
We love you. I love you all.
Okay. And Grandma, Ed's gonna edit this and make it into a memory.